Sasa kama serikali hapana nataka kujua, na sisi ni raia yake. Sasa nani tachunga sisi?
Just being squeezed, the kibera is going.
Mimi nazaliwa nakuta nyumba ya babu yangu. Na mimi nakaa kwa babu yangu. Mimi napata mke nazaa tuko kwa babu yangu. Watoto yangu mimi nazaa wako kwa babu yangu.
This is our home. This is the heritage. This is everything that we know.
Kitu umeshare ndani yake, utawachia mtu?
We have been treated as like we are not part of Kenya.
We want our rights.
This is a story of a migrant community which has been struggling to survive against all odds. As a minority, the Kenyan Nubians have been around for the last 100 years and very little is known about this closely knit community. In this documentary, we will hear about their history and how they've survived all along. As a people, they will tell us about their origins and their journey. They will also share with us their plight and fears. This is the Nubian Question in Kenya. Like his father, Ali Saleh was drafted into the military and joined the 5th King African Rifle and had 1494 as his service number. For the first time since he was demobilized 67 years ago, he is stepping on a site which was once a military camp. Bula Camp was the headquarters where servicemen were drawn from Nigeria, the Gambia, Rhodesia, South Africa, Sierra Leone, Uganda, Nyasaland, Kenya and the Gold Coast. In the interest of the Ottoman Empire and later the British, Sudanese found themselves exposed to various battles around the globe.
Turkish Egyptian rulers in the middle 19th century took Sudanese troops to fight in Mexico.
There are Nubians in Burma. There are Nubians in India, in Bangladesh.
Their entry to East Africa may be traced as far as 1830s, when Muhammad Ali, the Viceroy of Egypt, began the conquest of Sudan from 1820. Although there were few instances of voluntary recruitments, most of the initiations in the army were done by force.
Napigwa ngoma. Kama sisi wavulana hii natoka huko, kumbe huko nakuja kufanya nini makutano yao huko. Utakuja kala tu pigwa filimbi. Kamata wana askari najaa ground huko. Mnakamata watu ila kwa mwana kamatwa. Wanapelekwa huko wewe askari.
A section of what was Bula Camp is now Kenyatta National Hospital, while the other houses the Nairobi Provincial Police Headquarters. Upon retirement, Burhan ventured into business and took golf as his sport, where he brushed shoulders with the rich and the mighty. On his part, Yahya crisscrossed the British colonies, teaching music and setting up brass bands.
49 ndio nikaenda Mauritius. Nikakaa huko Mauritius mwezi 6. Singapore, kwa Madagascar, karudi tena Durban, karudi tena 50. Kwa Nyanyuki. Nyanyuki ulikafanya karudi tena Bula Camp.
Ali Saleh, Burhan Marjan and Yahya Sebit are lucky to have survived the Second World War. Their colleagues who did not are honored in such sites across the world. Africans from many countries served with the Allied forces during the First and the Second World Wars. They took part in the campaigns to capture territories, and it was from here that the likes of Ali Saleh were deployed to various countries across the world. For him, it was the beginning of globalization.
Kwanza tulikwenda mpaka huko Ceylon. Sasa huko Sri Lanka. Tukafanya training kule Ceylon, kutoka Ceylon kwenda kwenda mahali moja Chitogong. Ndio tukaingia meli hapo sasa. Tukashika njia kwa kupambana na Japan sasa. Tukafukuza wao mpaka tukapeleka huko pande ya Bama, huko tukafukuza kutoka Rangoon mpaka huko Mandalay.
Upon retirement as a sergeant, Ali Saleh settled here.
Hii baba alijenga na hii na ile mimi nilijenga.
Kibra land was set aside for the settlement of the King's African Rifle soldiers after their demobilization in the two world wars. Established in 1912 as part of the British military strategy, it was here where most members of the Nubian community have lived since.
The date of enlistment wakati aliingizwa kwa King's African Rifle 1902 na date of discharge yake ndio hii 1917.
Nubians were so instrumental in the development of the different states. For example, Uganda, by the time the territory was carved out, the Nubians were the first and foremost in the military services, and to make sure that they ensure that the security of the British was ensured.
Zamani alikuwa kina mama yangu baba yangu anaika watu wanalima kwa hadi yote alikuwa mashamba unaona tunajenga nyumba hii.
Kina Bamia. Ingine Wanubi naita nini yo? Kina Kerekede, Mulukia, Wadomio.
Saa 10 wao hapana uwezo kuja Lindi. Fisi kama mbuzi.
Ungetoka hapa uende 400 meters ndio ukute boma ingine.
Every Kenyan Nubian is a direct descendant of the King's soldiers, and for a period, it was mandatory for all Nubians of 18 years and above to join the army. An up-to-date list of the community's male children was maintained with a view to ensuring constant supply of recruits. Current estimates put the figure of 200,000 as being the population of Nubians in Kenya, with 20% of them living in Kibera.
Si rahisi wewe kujenga, si rahisi wewe kuwa mpangaji hapa, si rahisi wewe kuja tu namna hiyo bila kujulikana. Lazima inajulikana leo mtu mgeni ameingia na leo mgeni ameondoka.
According to the Colonial Catalan Commission report, the 4,197-acre piece of land just 5 kilometers from the city center was surveyed in 1917 and gazetted the following year. Chaired by Sir Maurice Carter, the commission was set up in 1932 by the Secretary of State for the British colonies to consider the land requirements of the African population. In 1928, Kibera became a settlement reserve after it was demilitarized.
Kutoka Dagoretti hapa barabara moja kwa moja mpaka King George, yani sasa Kenyatta. Hii barabara ya kwenda Mbagathi Road ndio inavuka inaenda paka Wilson. Sasa kutoka hapa Wilson pale tulipatia uhuru hapo, hii barabara ya Lang'ata sasa moja kwa moja jeshi iko pande ya kushoto kwenda moja kwa moja mpaka Wanyama na Mistuni. Hapa iko Bekoni. Kutoka hapo kwenda moja kwa moja kurudi mpaka Dagoretti. Hapa ilikuwa ndio Wanubi.
There was the Majlis that arbitrated, advised, and was in charge of providing security for the community. The Assembly of Elders appointed Aliwali to act as a representative but not as a ruler. The Majlis got its blessings directly from clans, which in turn got their mandate from the heads of respective families.
Hapo darajani, mahali iko daraja, ndio ilikuwa nyumba yetu. Tulikuja kuondolewa hapo 1947.
From then on, Nubians started to lose sections of what they considered their land under the colonial rule.
Ardhi yote ilikuwa yetu.
Bits and bits started to be allocated in mysterious circumstances, and housing projects meant to address the community's housing problem were constructed but favored other Kenyans who already had their own ancestral homes.
Even the Ayani Estate which was built, that was our village. But you see, 590 units which were built there, only 34 people are allocated.
Munibe apate room moja au mbili na kabila ingine ipate room 10. Hii itakuwa haki au ni dhuluma?
Kibera was supposed to be divided into 5 neighborhood units, each one of which would have a capacity of accommodating up to 3,000 people.
Matrakta ilikuja, maaskari walikuja na bomoa manyumba. Angushwa manyumba na angushwa manyumba. Tokeni endeni.
In open spaces, structures were forcefully erected for commercial purposes. What was over 4,000 acres of land has now shrunk to 300.
Kibira nabadilika. Nabaki manailo ndio napepea na watu wengine hatujui natoka wapi.
It was free for all, and slowly, what was once an organized, peaceful and clean area has now been turned into the biggest informal settlement south of Sahara.
For somebody who's never been to Africa, you'd rather have some heart of steel, because we have raw sewage around here. I mean, there's so many alleyways here. Life is rough. There's so many handguns around here. You can get mugged at night, anywhere, even during the day.
Abdul Majid Ahmed has escaped death 3 times. He graduated from petty crimes to drug peddling and finally to armed robbery.
Ile siku na kujaribu tu tukasikia marisasi zikaanza kuli.
Wakati niliposhikwa ngete ilikuwa Friday.
Due to poverty, the number of Nubian youths venturing into criminal activities is increasing day by day.
Bangi, and there is this, they usually call matap-tap. I don't know what it is, majanki.
Wengine wanyang'anya waogopi hata kina mama wananyang'anya.
As a result of little education or none at all, lack of employment is rampant here, and youths are now finding solace in drug business among other criminal activities.
Kwa nyuma mmoja nilimjua jina Hamisi.
Inability to develop leads to poverty. 30 years before independence, people here were able to cater for their basic needs. Nubians owned farms, wholesale shops and slaughterhouses. Many are now unable to meet basic necessities in life.
Most of them, they are not working. You find very few who are working. So most of the time, they depend on women who are just at home. You come and you leave some little men for me, you depend me to do this, you want this and that. You know, women are overworking.
Through venturing into small-scale businesses, women are now seen to be breadwinners in many homes.
Tuna kikundi chetu ambacho kinaitwa Taufik Nubian Women Group.
Women are also helping in preserving the Nubian culture by producing items that are linked to their tradition.
Over here you have suk-suk. This is for the neck.
This type of craft has been passed from one generation to the other, and whenever you see this being carried along, chances are that there is a wedding ceremony in progress. Kuta, tabaga and biris are a must when it comes to such occasions. Wedding ceremonies have been helping in keeping the culture alive, and since all members of this community are originally Muslims, immediately after the religious ceremony, what follows are rituals only linked to this community.
Binia giro tuo ma sukulan fi gina di shunu izam yiko to sulba fi badna do ko ragi ya gida fata
Aywa.
Mana to shunu aywa
Mama
yo malgweli do
sede au rubutu.
Orasto gipun kaman Rastarus Gima satu Duku rajil arus ya gida fata.
It's early morning on a Sunday, and Hamis Bilali has brought his 2-month-old boy for medical attention. For 3 generations, members of Juma Abdul Bain's family have been doing surgery in this compound. Hamis is talking about epiglottis, a thin flap of tissue at the back of the tongue that sometimes outgrows or swells upon infection, thus becoming a nuisance when eating or breathing. Every member of this family has a steady job, but because they have inherited this exercise from their forefathers, they are bound to be present every Sunday morning to attend to people who need their services.
Ilianza kwa babu, ikakuja kwa watoto wake, baada ya watoto wake, sasa ndio imefikia kwetu sisi wajukuu na vitukuu.
Ina nubi, terebia tenda,
mila tena, gen tena, alas good.
This is what is now worrying at present.
And that's why we decided to form a youth session and guide the youth through Nubian culture.
Ongea lugha ya Kiswahili, ongea Kinubi.
Nare na lebis litim Nubini. Lakin kanta kumain kalamal so miladini magidor, magiben, mendis asar ta Kinubi.
Zamani na sasa tofauti kubwa, hata tunakaa tu tunaona tu kama sinema.
Gita Mwafrika, wasma ta Kinubi. Tasma, kabila ta Kinubi, tajidi ta Kinubi, abuba ta Kinubi. Tabadi sete Ingilisi, bisaide ta maso. Aha, tokumodu, yala.
Culture is a way of life. It's the way you dress, what you eat, and the way you dance.
Kinaitwa Youngsters. Jina kinyumbani Yankaku. Yeah.
Wherever there's a Nubian, there's Doluka. On their part, Ajmabe is using modern instruments to play Nubian songs and tune. October 31st, 2001 is the day Nubians will never forget. It was when President Moi announced that no one had a right to demand rent from tenants in Kibera.
Wewe ndio ulikuwa unaongoza nchi hii. Wewe mwenyewe ndio ulisema utapeana haki. Leo unaanza kusema tunakaa kwa hii ardhi hatulipi kodi. Hii ni ulimi gani?
This was the repercussion of the political statements that were made on that day.
Hawa yuko wapi? Hawa yuko wapi hawa Nubi hawa? Tuwamaliza hawa. Wanamwaga tena nini? Petroli. Wanakata kibiriti wanatupa. Bubum. Sasa rumu 10 inachomeka yote. Kwa wakanikata kipua nika hospitali.
Inaonekana ya kwamba kuna interest ya watu fulani, kuna mapendekezo ya watu fulani ambao kwamba wanataka mahali hapa.
The area like where the Nubians stay in Kibera has over time increased in value despite the fact that it's in a slum. It is in neighboring area to Ngong where a plot of land goes for no less than 10 million.
Back to the war business.
Watu napigania kwa British kwa roho safi kabisa.
Alitajia nitakuwa nilipe. Hata mzee wangu hakulipa kitu.
Unlike their white counterparts, the likes of Ali Saleh were demobilized without any meaningful compensation, pension, or after-service benefits. What most of them have are discharge certificates or medals of recognition presented while serving in the military. It appears that the dead soldiers are receiving more care than the living ex-servicemen. Few months after this visit to Bula camp, Ali Saleh fell sick and was admitted at the hospital built at a site where Bula camp once stood. He was discharged for home-based care, but his condition deteriorated and he died.
Jali huyu ameambatana sasa na rehema ya Mola wake.
At the dawn of Kenya's independence, the British left Kenya without any resettlement plan for the Nubians, and successive governments have also failed to take concrete measures to change the Nubian situation. Unlike the belief of many, the Nubians participated in the fight for independence along with the rest of Kenyans. As the quest for Kenya's independence reached its climax, British authorities sought assistance from the Nubian elders, but their request was turned down.
The British expected, because we are loyal to them, we could join them to fight the Mau Mau.
The first president of this country, many people don't know, he used to live in Dagoretti. And during those years, Kibera was a designated area for Nubians alone. And many a time he will come to Kibra and seek refuge. He'll be dressed in a kanzu and seek refuge in this area.
Uhuru na kazi, uhuru na Kenyatta, uhuru na serikali. Lakini yeye alipokuwa chairman ya KANU hapa Nairobi, kuna mkutano ilifanywa Kamukunji, Mzee Kenyatta alikuwa yuko, yeye alikuja anasema harambe. Hata Mzee Kenyatta anamuuliza Faraji, leo mbona wanasema harambe? Anasema mzee, sisi tumeshapata uhuru. Sasa tuungane pamoja, tusukume gurudumu hiyo, tuendeshe na watu wetu. Ndio alianza harambe hapo.
Having worked together with the rest of Kenyans, the Nubians now feel misused and dumped. Their lives under the Kenyan democratic system have not changed much because the ballot box does not have any effect.
And so we see a community that is completely left out. And therefore, to that extent, it is rendered vulnerable, to all sorts of, of attacks and violations.
If we look at politics within the context of Kenya, one needs to have one number. The second thing, it needs perhaps to have the ethnic background, which brings about the question of number. Now, for a community like the Nubians, which has remained small in number, owing to the politics of population that has been played within Kibera, has remained non-participatory in all decision making.
Sijui kama President Kibaki atafikiria mambo kama hayo au hawezi, kwa sababu tumetengwa.
Sasa ikiwa sisi ni Waafrika, tuko katika nchi wa Afrika, Muhindi na mzungu ana haki kuliko sisi, haki yao inahifadhiwa kuliko sisi. Hii inaonekana hawana imani ya mwanadamu. Ndipo leo tunakaa katika hizi manyumba. Si ati kujenga mawe ilitushinda, hapana. Lakini hatukupewa haki yetu vile inavyopaswa kupewa kama wananchi wa nchi hii.
Unfortunately for the Nubians, unlike any other British soldiers whose reward in terms of land was immediate and even titled, the Nubian land has never been finalized in terms of the allocation process.
The British had a duty of care, for example, to ensure that when the Nubians were left in this country, their status was clearly defined. They had a duty to ensure that whatever land passes they were given were land passes that could receive legal protection.
Unaona mtu kama ameshafungiwa njia ya kupata riziki, kazi. Sasa si inamaanisha tu wakati wote tu unaweza kumalizwa tu.
The Nubian feels that he is being driven to extinction. And he will not take that lying down.
One would place the blame where it belongs. It is a problem to the Kenyan state, which has never worked out the processes to regularize and deal with the land matters effectively as they ought to be.
Tunategemea government tutusaidie sisi. Na government hapa anajua tuko namna gani, tunakula nini, tunakunywa nini. Ajui. Anajua kweli.
There are so many of us who are walking dead.
Future haiendi mzuri. Juu promises zimekuwa mingi.
Shupa Omar. Zainab Hassan. Siama Yahya. Aji Sonosi Asma Ahmed.
I am the 4th generation. My son is the 5th generation. The other will be the 6th generation. We were born here. We were being buried across here. Where do we go? We don't have to go anywhere. And we are not going to go anywhere. This is our place. This is where our heritage is. This is our culture where we are in Kibera here.
The struggle will continue. As long as the Nubian question remains unresolved, our country can never claim to be in the league of the countries that support human rights, that eliminates injustices, that avoid marginalization of communities, so that it can be a country which thrives in diversity.
Land is critical to the economic, social, and cultural development of any community. Land was the key reason for the struggle of independence for many countries in Africa, and it is now the basis of struggle for the Nubians in Kenya. With land, they will be able to effectively nurture and practice their culture and address most of their problems. Kibera is their heritage, their home, and their future. Democracy is not only the rule of the majority, but a system that also respects the rights of minorities.
Sultan Sultana Zubana